In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. In the previous video, while discussing situation 1, we examined Ghamidi Sahab's objection to the traditional scholars' interpretation of the Quranic directives on inheritance and how these were practically executed. In this video, we turn our attention to Ghamidi Sahab's understanding of the remaining two situations. These are situations 2 and 3, which concern the shares of full sisters and maternal half-sisters. According to the traditional scholars, it is impossible to distribute the inheritance as specified in the Holy Quran without making adjustments. Their proposed solution involves proportionally reducing the shares of all heirs in order to ensure that each heir, especially the one who might otherwise be excluded, receives something. We have already learned that the principle of all leads to a complete alteration of the Quranic allocations, thereby making it impossible to implement the original instructions of the Quran as they stand. Let us now examine Ghamidi Sahab's interpretation of these two cases just as we did with the first. We will not only consider how Ghamidi Sahab critiques the traditional scholars' interpretation, but also explore his own understanding of these two scenarios. First, there's case 2. In this scenario, a woman passes away, leaving an inheritance of 12 rupees to her heirs, her husband, her mother, and 2 full sisters. According to the traditional scholars and their reading of the Quran, the mother is entitled to 1/6, approximately 16.66% of the estate. Thus, she receives 2 rupees out of 12 rupees. The husband, in the absence of any children, is entitled to 1/2 or 50% of the estate. Therefore, he receives 6 rupees out of 12 rupees. The full sisters, according to the traditional scholars, are to receive 2/3 or 66.66% of the estate. Therefore, they are allocated 8 rupees out of 12 rupees. The traditional scholars derive the share of the sisters from Surah Al-Nisa, verse 176, which states, يَسْتَفْتُونَكَ قُلِ اللَّهُ يُفْتِيكُمْ فِي الْكَلَالَةِ إِنِ امْرُؤٌ هَلَكَ لَيْسَ لَهُ وَلَدٌ وَلَهُ أُخْتٌ فَلَهَا نِصْفُ مَا تَرَكَ وهو يرثها إن لم يكن لها ولد فإن كانتا اثنتين فلهما للثلثان مما ترك. They ask you for a ruling. Say, God gives you a ruling concerning the one who dies without descendants or ascendants. If he leaves a sister, she receives half of what he leaves. If she dies childless, he will inherit from her. But if there are 2 sisters, they receive 2/3 of what he leaves. Based on this verse, the traditional scholars assign 2/3 of the inheritance to full sisters. Thus, case 2 is summarized as above. Coming now to case 3, in this case, the deceased woman leaves behind her husband, 2 full sisters, and 2 maternal half-sisters. According to the Quran, in the absence of progeny, the husband receives 50%, rupees 6 out of rupees 12. From the remaining 6 rupees, the maternal half-sisters must receive their share. The traditional scholars refer to Surah Al-Nisa verse 12, which assigns 1/3 or 33.33% of the total inheritance to maternal siblings. Hence, the maternal sisters are to receive rupees 4 out of rupees 12. After distributing rupees 6 to the husband and rupees 4 to the maternal sisters, only rupees 2 remains. However, according to the traditional scholars and Surah Al-Nisa verse 176, the full sisters are entitled to 2/3, rupees 8 out of rupees 12, but only 2 rupees is left, creating a shortfall. To resolve this, the traditional scholars invoke the principle of all, reducing the share of each heir proportionally to accommodate all. Some traditional scholars grouped full sisters with the maternal half-sisters, while others excluded the full sisters entirely. Yet, another group invoked the all principle to adjust all shares, thereby, Ghamidi Sahab argues, altering the divine commandments. Still, all the traditional scholars agree on one point, that maternal half-sisters are allocated a share in inheritance. They derive this view from Surah Al-Nisa verse 12, which they interpret as follows. وَإِنْ كَانَ رَجُلٌ يُورَثُ كَلَالَةً أَوْ امْرَأَةٌ وَلَهُ أَخٌ أَوْ أُخْتٌ فَلِكُلِّ وَاحِدٍ مِّنْهُمَا لِلسُّدُسِ فَإِنْ كَانُوا أَكْثَرَ مِنْ ذَلِكَ فَهُمْ شُرَكَاءُ فَلِلثُّلُثِ. If a man or a woman leaves neither parents nor children, but has a brother or sister, each one of them shall receive 1/6. But if they are more than 2, they shall share 1/3. From these two cases, it is evident that the traditional scholars base the shares of full and maternal sisters on 2 distinct verses of the Quran, verse 176 and verse 12 of Surah Al-Nisa. However, they also maintain that a literal application of both verses leads to impractical results, necessitating modifications like owl. What is Ghamidi Sahib's critique of this interpretation? Ghamidi Sahib challenges this traditional understanding on three key grounds. We will analyze each of these to see how his interpretation aligns with the Quranic guidance. According to the traditional scholars, verse 12 deals with maternal siblings, whereas verse 176 deals with full siblings, but Ghamidi Sahib disputes the traditional scholars' reading of both. First objection: are the siblings in verse 12 maternal? Ghamidi Sahib first raises a semantic objection. How do the traditional scholars infer that the word siblings in verse 12 refers exclusively to maternal siblings? To understand this, we must first define maternal half-siblings. If a woman remarries after her first husband dies or divorces her and has children from both marriages, the children from these marriages are called maternal siblings, sharing the same mother but different fathers. The traditional scholars assert that verse 12 of Surah Al-Nisa addresses such siblings. However, upon direct examination of the verse, وَإِنْ كَانَ رَجُلٌ يُورَثُ كَلَالَةً أَوْ امْرَأَةً وَلَهُ أَخٌ أَوْ أُخْتٌ فَلِكُلِّ وَاحِدٍ مِنْهُمَا لِلسُّدُسِ. There is no explicit mention of maternal siblings, only brother or sister. So, how do the traditional scholars justify interpreting this as referring only to maternal siblings? Their answer lies in referencing variant recitations of the Quran. They claim that in some versions the term maternal or minalumi appears in this verse. But does another version of the Quran exist? According to the traditional scholars, yes. They cite classical commentators like Imam al-Zamakhshari, who in his Tafsir al-Kashaf wrote that there is consensus that this verse refers to maternal siblings. He also cited variant recitations by Ubay ibn Ka'b and Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, which explicitly use the words minal ummi. However, the Quran, as preserved and transmitted by the Prophet, peace be upon him, to the Ummah, recited, memorized, and published throughout the world, is not subject to such variation. This Quran, believed to be unaltered, is the one universally accepted across the Muslim world. Yet the traditional scholars claim that an alternate recitation reads, وَلَهُ أَخٌ أَوْ أُخْتٌ مِنَ الْأُمِّ, meaning he has a brother or sister from the mother. Such interpretations raise serious theological questions. First, is the Quran final and complete? If alternative versions are accepted, then how can we maintain that the Quran is preserved till the Day of Judgment? Second, can humans decide which version is authentic? If people pick between different versions, it undermines the very authority of the Quran. Now here's the question, what about the rest of the Quran? If we allow additions here, can other verses also be amended or replaced? Ghamidi Sahib argues that these variant readings cannot override the universally accepted version of the Quran. He further cites Surah Al-Qiyamah, verse 18 to 19, فَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ فَاتَّبِعْ قُرْآنَهُ ثُمَّ إِنَّ عَلَيْنَا بَيَانَهُ. When we have recited it, follow its recitation. Then indeed upon us is its explanation. This implies that only one recitation or qira'ah of the Quran is binding. Moreover, Surah Al-Nisa, immediately after the aforementioned verse, gives a stern warning, تِلْكَ حُدُودُ لِلَّهِ وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ يُدْخِلْهُ. These are the limits set by God, do not transgress them. Hence, Ghamidi Sahib concludes that the Quran we have today is the final and only valid version. There is no justification for inserting the word maternal into verse 12. This verse refers generically to siblings, whether full or maternal. No person has the authority to amend or override the Quran using other readings. Thus, we have examined the first of three foundational objections Ghamidi Sahib raises against the traditional scholars' interpretation. In the next video, we will explore the remaining two aspects of his critique concerning these cases of inheritance.